wanted to say thanks to everyone for being on here. And the Indy time, we're always looking for more Indy time as offensive line coaches, and I totally agree with that. And that's kind of where I'm going with mine, is where you can try to plan your practice so you get that stuff done. He talked a lot about communication with your group and guys working hard and fast. And I talked to a lot of coaches when I was trying to figure out what I was going to talk about here. And a few of them had comments about different things, but I had a few coaches say to me that they didn't have a plan going into practice because they could never plan a practice ahead of time just because they didn't know how many guys were going to show up. I can honestly say that I've always had a plan, and I think Benjamin Franklin's comment is very telling. I always have a plan for practice, and I think it's important that you do have a plan to organize yourself and to try to see what you can do, that you're prepared for your players. It's important because the blocking thing that we do is unnatural. Everything about it's unnatural. We don't go to the park to block, so we have to teach their players how to do it. It's a learned position. A lot of this stuff is just basic stuff we already know, but especially for the younger level coaches to understand that you're probably got the guys who are coming to you because they failed at other positions. You're the last stop before the bus stop. You got to reinforce the basics. You have to make it fun. I think a lot of young players, young men get into football and they come out to play another position, and then they're too big, they're too slow, whatever it is, and they end up on the offensive line. And a lot of young players get out of football at a very young age because it's boring. Well, because you were on the offensive line. And I think that's you as an offensive line coach. I think that's your job, to make it fun for the players, and how you organize yourself, how you conduct yourself at practice is important. I challenge all the young coaches out there to say, what is your vision? What do you want your group to look like? What do you want them to be able to do? What are the basic drills that you're going to hold true for yourself? I know Hoppy talked a lot about EDDs, and I think EDDs are great, and I do have some that I do every day, but I also change as per needed. I think you have to do that as a coach as well, whether it's game plan driven or it's skill set driven. Every practice plan I have, I always have something in there for each player, and I think that's important. Your individual should suit your offense. I've been to practices where I've seen guys like working pulls, but they don't have any pulls in their offense. So how does that make any sense? The communication part, like Hoppy talked about that, about the players communicating on the field. I think you need to communicate as well about what you're looking for in the drills. The other big one that gets overlooked a lot of the time at any level, I find, is who's your defensive line coach? What do you guys do as a group together? I think that's a really big thing that gets overlooked, is I always want to know who my D-line coach is. When can we get together? I've been very fortunate that I've had a chance to work with some guys who are very open and agreeable to working in pods, we call it. At Ottawa, we had a very long, like 101 period, which would span sometimes like 40 minutes if the head coach was not happy with how the pass skeleton was going. Everyone on the clinic knows you can't do 101s for 40 minutes because, again, you're going to over-rep the guys. So we found ways to do pods and get guys organized and work on different things. So we would tell them things to do, that offense gets a rep, defense gets a rep, and back and forth, and they're going against the opposite side of the line of scrimmage. And we as coaches, I have an assistant and there's two defensive line coaches. We're constantly walking around trying to coach the guys up during that period. And then they get a lot of reps. And the more you're walking around, the more they're inclined to take quality reps as opposed to, taking like time off. Okay. So I think if you're trying to maximize your time in practice, where can you start? I think from the moment you get out on the field is a time. If you're not in an organized group, let's say practice starts at 7:00, but you don't start till 7:10 because people are showing up late. If you're like minor level coach, I think early outs, getting out before practice, give them things to work on that they do first and foremost. And it's basic things. It's nothing extravagant. It could be your stance. It could be some basic footwork you want them to do. where their hands go, trying to learn how to strike. I have a walk-in punch drill that I've stolen from somebody. That is always an easy drill to do, just so they learn how to time their punch and where their punch like radius is. And they should be able to do these things on their own. They should be able to go outside and know, hey, I've got this to do, I've got that to do. You can tell them and give them a guide and a plan. The one thing that I've always done is, you can see here with the quarterback and center snap periods, I think that's crucial to have in your practice, to have before practice. I don't want the centers to have their first snaps be live with a quarterback and with the defense in front of them. So I want this pre-practice period where the guys will go out on their own. And some of you may have heard me speak before about this. I have a routine. I call it throwing darts, where the centers will go out together. There's usually 3 of them, and they will do their own warm-up before they even get into the position you see him in, that most like centers go into to actually snap a ball. And they're not allowed to snap to a quarterback until they've actually done that drill. This was like a layout of our practice plan. You can see how it was up here at the top about our like times for everything. And I've always been one to put in, this is all of what I had for practice that day. Now, I mean, some people will look at it and say, holy cow, that's a lot. How are you going to get all that done? This is where I was. So a lot of my coaches that I've worked with in the past have always said, how are you going to get all this done? And there's a lot there. Again, I'm of the philosophy that I'm going to go out with a plan where there's more. I'm not going to be a guy who's going to go out with basically just a couple of drills. If I get to all the stuff that's on this, great. If I don't, then it gives me a base for something to plan tomorrow. I'll always look at where I am on the schedule to know where I can try to fit in some time. So these are all things that mean something to me, my assistant coaches and whatnot. So I'll find time during the early outs period. I love what Hoppy does with the stretch. I've been at a program before where we've done it that way, where it's an individual like warm up, and you get your own time to warm up your guys in a way that they do things properly, as opposed to in the whole team setting where we all know the fat guys aren't necessarily going to do what the warm up that everyone else does. Where am I here? So we would, in our practices, we're going to go with an inside run period for offense, inside run period for defense during a regular practice week. So when the assistant O-line coach takes the guys down to service the defense, I'll have the ones or the dressers, and I'll work on some of the stuff I haven't actually gotten to. So there's a lot of time in there for things you can make up. I'm going to try to share some video here that I've stolen off of online. Much like Hoppy, we've been sort of locked out of our building there for a while, and we haven't been able to get a lot of stuff done. Can you see this video?
You're good now. You got the YouTube up.
Okay. So just trying to time the punch a bit, and you're going to change the speed of this guy coming in with the bag. I mean, this is sort of like the wave drill, where we're going to work a lot of things at once. Kind of like what Hoppy said, we can get a lot of things done. I can see all the players when they move, when they post, how they all work together, whether they're trying to lean too far. This one would be one I would definitely have in pregame. I'm not a big fan of the crossover punches, but again, hand-eye coordination. And then I also work this into a bit of like mirror drill as well. So we incorporate our hands and our feet while we're doing something like this. You can buy those hand pads at any of the sporting goods stores and stuff like that. So I was able to get a few practice plans from a few different coaches around, just to see where and how different practices are organized by different people and where you can fill in time. Obviously, everyone has a practice plan that's given to them, or I hope it is at any level. I was on a team where the head coach didn't want to do it, said he couldn't organize practice, and it was too much of a chore for him. So I was able to do it. But you can see down here, the one thing I say is, who's your defensive line coach? You know, who do you have to work with, and where can you get together with him as much as possible? Whether you're doing pass rush, you're doing run, you're doing zone blocking, doubles, they need to work on this. And there's a reason why most of those offensive linemen are in your room and not in their room. They were not very good at other positions, especially talking with the younger levels here. And if you're trying to get them to service your offensive lineman, your starting group or your guys are not going to get very good reps. So you want to get together with D-line as much as possible. Everything's learned reps. We did something, a lot of you guys, you can see here, they have an insertion period before practice. In the insertion period, we would walk through all of our protections. So we would have a blitz pickup period before the warm-up, and it was a mental part of practice where all the O-line and the backs, we would go through any blitzes we were seeing. And I think that was a great period for the guys to get through and visualize things as they went. I think that was an important